Well, hey, it's Gabriel Hernandez with Comical Opinions, and we're here to talk about the New Mutants. Not this New Mutants, no, this New Mutants. So before we get into it, I'd ask you to, if you haven't already, go ahead and click on that link down in the description to sign up for the Comical Opinions newsletter. Every week I put out an in-depth article talking about one of the topics that we covered during the week, but going much, much deeper, much, much broader, and hopefully giving you something very interesting to think about and to talk about and share with your friends. As you can see, I've already got some newsletters up, and the big one this week is, it's a spicy one, talking about politics and comics and have they always been there. Short answer is yes. The long answer is it's not what you think it is. So go ahead and click on that link, check out the articles. It's all completely free, and let's get back into it. So again, we're not talking about this New Mutants because this New Mutants is awesome. We're talking about this New Mutants, the film that just got released literally yesterday as of the recording of this video. So it was the August 27th, 2020. And well, before we get to find out how the movie's doing, let's talk a little bit about the troubled history of this movie. As you see, I'm going to the handy dandy Wikipedia page and talking about the ins and outs of the production, the casting, the storyline, the creators, and what have you. Now, at the time the movie first was conceived and started going into production, it was part of the 20th Century Fox. 20th Century Fox had film rights to all of the X-Men properties. That would include Deadpool, all the X-Men, I believe X-Force, any of the basically the mutant related properties were all under Fox, 20th Century Fox. Somewhere past the start of the production of this movie, but before it definitely was released, Fox, 20th Century Fox, was bought back by Disney, so it brought all of the mutants back under the Marvel umbrella. But that didn't stop this. That didn't stop this movie from going forward. But as you can probably guess, contributed a heck of a lot to its delays and some of the conflicts associated with that, which goes into the lesson of how this particular movie has a very, very, very strong message about the importance of indie comics and what's the lesson you can learn there. So what are the New Mutants? They're basically a group of teenagers that don't necessarily fall into the main X-Men lineup. There's a little bit of outsiders, sort of the newbies, the amateurs, if you will, folks that are just discovering their powers. They're the Teen Titans to the Justice League, if you want to look at it that way. The creators of the film approached the original New Mutants, as you can see, was primarily dreamed up in large part by Chris Claremont and Bob McLeod, which we'll talk about in a little bit. And some of the early art, which was done by some of the magnificent stuff was done by Bill Sienkiewicz, or Sienkiewicz. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that correctly, but that's kind of one of those tongue twisters. Sorry, Bill, if you're hearing this at all. The creators of the film, Josh Boone, said the film would be a standalone spin-off film expanding the universe of the X-Men franchise. While working on the first draft of the script, Boone sent it and his ideas for the film to Sienkiewicz, who thought Boone had it figured out and was not just copying the comics. Okay, well, that can be good and that can be bad, depending on how you are not copying the comics and whether or not you still maintain the essence. And if you go back to the Comical Opinions newsletter, I have an article right here about canon and how that applies directly. So hint, hint, please subscribe. Please go read the newsletter. I'd very much appreciate it. Leave me likes, comments, or whatever you think if I'm off base. Boone took the script also then to this person right here, Simon Kinberg, among others. Simon Kinberg is the gentleman that basically was the Kevin Feige of the 20th Century Fox X-Men films. He was sort of the master architect of how all the mutant films played into each other. Love him or hate him, he's the guy that basically screwed up the Dark Phoenix saga twice, if you want to look at it that way. So that kind of tells you what you need to know about Simon Kinberg. He, well-intentioned, very creative guy, but when it comes to mutants and Marvel mutants, I should say, and what he could do with them within 20th Century Fox, not a fan. Personally, I'm just not a fan. Okay, so they took the film, they started working on it, then they ran into problems. Production delays. You can read all the history here. I'm not going to get into too much of the details. But one of the things that definitely popped up is obviously it was due to be released, and then they ran into some scheduling conflicts, primarily for one reason down here. I don't get down to it. The New Mutants was released in the United States. Actually, technically it's today, but they had some pre-release yesterday. It was originally set to be released in 2018. That was over 2 years ago, before being delayed to February 22nd to avoid Deadpool 2, another Fox property, but also Marvel, and then to August 2nd, 2019, to avoid Dark Phoenix, also another X-Men Fox joint production. It was delayed to April because Disney acquired Fox, and then removed from Disney's schedule in March 2020 due to COVID-19. Disney rescheduled, and then it's coming out now. Okay, so all kinds of problems. They had production delays, they had reshoots because the first draft or the first cut looked pretty decent, but they wanted to make some changes. Fox wasn't happy with it. They made some changes. They showed it to Disney. They weren't happy with it because it didn't fit into what would eventually become known as the MCU. It's like, okay, you're going to introduce mutants, which haven't been done before within the MCU because Fox always owned the property rights to them. And this is how you're going to introduce them. In a movie that just doesn't fit the title, the style, the tone of the MCU films. And it's just like, okay, so we've got this movie, it's basically done, and effectively they just said, just push it out there. Nobody expects it to do well at this point. So they pushed it out there many, many years after effectively the movie was already done and reshoots and production and everything else. One other thing I'll add in about this, as you can see both from the cover of the original, Chris Claremont and Bob McLeod, and even listed here, Chris Claremont, Bob McLeod. How did they spell his name? McLeod. That's how you spell his name. Go to Bob McLeod's Twitter. They couldn't even be bothered to check the spelling of my name sometime in the last 3 years, and that can't be fixed. That will be on the movie forever. I think I'm done with this movie. They spelled in the movie and in the credits and on the poster McLeod as Macleod. So to say that this was kind of dead on arrival is probably the understatement of the year, in a very, very big year for overstatements and understatements. It's just a mess. I can't fault the casting. The casting looks good. If we're talking about, let's see, who we got starring? Maisie Williams as Rain, yes. Anya Taylor-Joy as Magic, yes. Charlie Heaton as Cannonball. I'm hearing he was grossly underutilized, so okay. Blue Hunt as Danny Moonstar. Henry Zaga is Sunspot. And Alice Braga, I forget her character name in there, but as I understand it, this was a decent casting selection here. If you want more in depth about whether or not the casting made sense for the film from the source material, instead of me going over them rehashing it, what I recommend you do is go over to Young Ripper 59's channel, Young Ripper 59. He did an excellent review today, and he can talk about the ins and outs of how the characters and the casting choices relate to each other and how that was reflected in the film, because he's giving a somewhat decent review. I liked it a lot. I thought it was very solid. So rather than me rehashing, giving my own review, go over to Young Ripper 59, and he can give you the ins and outs of what he thought of the film in and of itself. But the fact that they had one of the co-creators of the New Mutants and they misspelled his name is inexcusable. Okay. So was it worth it? Was the delay worth it? Did it make sense? This is an $80 million film. Box office. Let's take a look. How are the ratings? Yeah, not great on the ratings. Let's refresh the page and see if they've gotten any better. Oh, no. The reviewer ratings just went down 2% while I was recording this film. So if I go to details, take a look at top critics, nothing. Only four top critics rated it, and they gave it all bupkis. So yeah, this went down from 20% to 18% just in the time that I've been recording this video for about the last 5 or 10 minutes. And the audience score after 222 people, 55%, not great. Well, sometimes the ratings aren't good, but it'll make its money. Now, remember, we're still sort of in the midst of a COVID-19 pandemic lockdown. It only went to limited theaters. So how did it do in its early Thursday opening? Yikes. 720,000. Didn't even make $1 million. That's not a good sign. Okay, so let's recap that a little bit. Very long development time. Obviously, errors in at the very least in the credits when you can't even credit the creator's name properly. That's not a good sign. If you go through, as I said, Young Ripper 59's video here, and I'll put a link down to his video down in the description as well. Yeah, they couldn't. Some of the casting choices were good, some of them were not good, and the story was just kind of meh. And the ratings reflect that, and the box office reflects that. So let me tie this back into what this means for indie comics, right? Because it's part of the title, and that's kind of the opinion I wanted to get to. The part of it, well, I'll say part of it, I will say a lot of the reason why this movie turned out the way it did is because it's a corporate machine product. You have Fox, 20th Century Fox, squabbling with Disney, which owns Marvel, over property that Marvel gave up some years ago when they were probably going through bankruptcy and had all kinds of financial troubles. So you have corporate entities squabbling with each other. You have an IP which you get essentially a film based on an IP, which is intellectual property based upon a vision for the creators that, especially if you watch that Young Ripper review, doesn't match the original creative vision, and the story suffers for it. You can see also, though we pointed out in the production release section, that some of the delays were also against competing properties within the same movie studio. They pushed it for Deadpool 2. They pushed it for Dark Phoenix. They pushed it and they pushed it and pushed it because of competing properties within the same sort of cinematic universe, even though it was not directly the MCU. It was Fox's version of the MCU, and they couldn't even get coordinated within and of themselves. And then the end result is, as you can see from the ratings, and also from Young Ripper's review, the vision just doesn't match what made this book so good to great. So, what is that? What can you tell from that from an indie and a creator owned perspective? Is you control the property when you are an indie creator and it is a creator owned product. So you don't get any of that corporate squabbling against who owns the property and timing of release schedules and who gets to do what and pushing one book for the other. If this is your book, you get to make it the way you want to make it. I'm talking about comics, but eventually could also apply to film as well. If it's good or it's bad, it's all on you. So even if you put out a bad comic, you still have the satisfaction of knowing it's your comic. And then you have also the opportunity to take that feedback. And the next time, if you get the chance, hopefully to make a sequel, and if you're creating your own, there's nothing stopping you from doing that other than your time, money, and effort, then you can make it better and make it better. And the next iteration will be better and will be better. It's all on you for good, bad, or indifferent. And you have the satisfaction of knowing that's all yours. So don't be like Fox. Don't be like the New Mutants. Not this New Mutants. Don't be like this New Mutants. Like this one. Create your own stuff. Own your own stuff. Don't allow your vision to be subject to the whims and whimsies of corporate overlords that can't even get their act together, can't get their schedules together, can't get their story straight from the source material to the translation on the page, and can't even be bothered. And my big condolences to Bob and Cloud. Can't even be bothered after this many years of delay to spell one of the co-creators' names right. Don't be that guy. Learn the lesson from the New Mutants. Own your own IP. Own your own stuff. Create your own stuff. Control your own stuff. Make it your baby. Make it your own. And you'll never go wrong. People may not like it, but at least you know you'll never go wrong. So that's my opinion. This is Gabe Hernandez from Comical Opinions. Please, again, sign up for the newsletter. The link is down in the description. They've already got some great articles up that are getting a lot of traction and a lot of interest. So I appreciate everyone who signed up so far. And for everybody who subscribes, I'm looking to do some cool perks and things later on down the line. So better to get in now than later so you don't miss out. And this is Gabe Hernandez for Comical Opinions. Thank you for joining me, and have a great day.